Welcome to Blackxecutive Podcast, where we share inspiration and actionable advice for Black creatives going pro. I'm your host, Jazz. With each episode, we'll chat with Black creatives thriving in entrepreneurship, corporate careers, and the nonprofit sector, all while building a network of Black creatives, 6 head nods apart. Enjoy the show, where the dreamers become doers and the aspiring become inspired. Let's get started. What's up, Blackxecutive fam? I'm your host, Jazz, and today we'll be speaking with Keisha Graves, founder of and CEO of Girls Chronically Rock, which was created to inspire and motivate people in the disability community. Welcome to the show, Keisha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm so glad that we're able to finally talk. I know we kind of chatted back and forth, online. It's different when you actually get to hear someone's voice.
Yes, that's true.
Well, first I wanted to say, I usually don't comment on guest appearance, but considering you have a fashion brand, I must say your makeup and all your pictures is popping. Love your clothing line. Everything on the site, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get that. I love the pillows. I love the mask. So I will be doing some shopping after this episode.
Thank you. Yes, please do.
And on that note about your website, I want to say that it is definitely a powerhouse of information, and it got me together real quick, snatched my whole wig with some of your articles. I was like, okay, let me do some inner work and make sure that, analyze my life and make sure that I'm speaking correctly and what can I do to be a better ally? So thank you for having that source of information because it is much needed.
Okay.
Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the inspiration behind your brand?
Sure. So as I mentioned, my name is Keisha, and I am the founder and CEO of Girls Chronically Rock clothing brand. And the reason I started that brand, I founded it in 2017. And what inspired me to start it was I actually am someone that lived with a disability. I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy in around 2009, 2010, when I was actually in graduate school. So from that, of course, here I was in my early 20s, living my best life. And then boom, I started to get these really weird symptoms within my body where I honestly would just be walking and my knees would kind of buckle and my leg would kind of just give out on me without any warning or anything. So it's just kind of happened out of nowhere. So for some time, I'm just kind of was brushing it off. It would happen here and there, but not so frequently. In the beginning, it was just one or two. So I'm like, oh, maybe I just need to do a diet change, exercise, not really thinking anything of it. But it was one day, me, my mom and sister were actually leaving the supermarket and we're walking. I'm pushing the cart and my leg just, boom, gives out on me and I fall to the floor. And when I fell, it wasn't I can get myself back up. It was a dead weight, kind of that dead weight. It was hard for even say my mom and sister to pick me up. It took someone else to kind of position me and lift me back up so I can catch my balance. So it was at that moment, my mom and sister were like, I think maybe you need to see a doctor. Let's go see an orthopedic to see what's going on. So I'm just all right, still really just brushing it off. So we go see an orthopedic out here in Boston at the hospital. And then we just, regular examination, regular doctor's appointments. I'm lying on the bed. They come in, kind of ask me to raise my right leg, raise my left leg. And the legs would not really go up as much as say how it should, like an able-bodied person. So that was the first time I noticed that. And then they just kind of looked at each other so I think maybe you need to see a neurologist because they're this looks like something more neuromuscular. They can just tell from that, it wasn't just something in the feet. So I was like, all right, la-di-da. So then I go see a neurologist. And then that's when we go straight through it. We did several tests like EKG, EMG. We did a muscle biopsy where they took a piece of muscle from out of my right leg. That was very interesting. So from that biopsy, that's when she determined that I have muscular dystrophy. Crazy, right?
What a story. I mean, and that is definitely a lesson in paying attention to your body and not brushing off symptoms of things that could have an underlying cause that you don't realize. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's true. It's totally true because you're and then it's also made you realize too, it's you never know what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's hello, where did you come from?
Right.
It's crazy.
My goodness. I mean, and I know, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but you're like so upbeat and positive, and not everyone can have that mentality. Did it take you a while to kind of get there, or did you kind of initially like just take it head on and say like, look, I'm just gonna have to make some adjustments and we're gonna get through this?
No, girl. So it was definitely took some time to get used to. So if you had asked me like a few years back, oh, do you see yourself, starting a brand to inspire others or going on podcasts? No. So
Mm,
yes, when I got that call that day when the doctor said you have muscular dystrophy, that was a total shock because
mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is muscular dystrophy? I never heard it. Nobody in my family seemed to have it, so I totally shut down. And then, like some of us, what we may do is go on Google. So I'm on
Yeah.
Google searching what is muscular dystrophy, and I'm seeing all not so great things like, oh, some people don't live past their late 40s.
Mm,
There's no treatment, there's no cure. So I'm reading all of that and I'm like, this possibly can't be me. Like, she had to call the wrong patient.
yeah.
That was honestly what I was thinking. Like, maybe she got it mixed up with the results and things like that. And I'm just like, no, she can't be talking about me. So it's like I totally shut down. I wasn't really telling family and friends. The only way family knew was because, my mom would share with her sisters, my aunts, and then they would relay that to the rest of the family. But that's like in total shock. It's like, where did this come from? Nobody in my family seemed to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in total denial, especially when it started to progress. Like, because then I started using, I was driving then, still independent
Mm-hmm.
and, doing me. Eventually still, started to progress. So I'm starting to go to physical therapy. And then I started using a cane. And even when I started using a cane, going on job interviews, I would tell them I sprained my ankle or I was in a car accident. That's how much in denial I was. I wouldn't
Mm,
just say I have muscular dystrophy. So you see what I mean? Like, I was saying
yeah.
everything but those two things. It just like sounded better for me for some reason. Like, saying muscular dystrophy was like, it just made it seem too real. So it definitely took some time. And then it honestly took one day where one of my friends was like, why don't you write a blog, kind of share your story and your journey about being diagnosed with muscular dystrophy.
Mm,
And I just kind of looked like, why would I do that? I don't have muscular dystrophy. So that's how much in denial I was. But then I kind of thought about it. I'm here sitting, and then I just honestly opened my laptop one day and I just started typing. I just started typing and saying about all the symptoms, like how I'm explaining to you now about the symptoms of me falling and
mm-hmm.
going to the doctor appointments. And it's like it took that moment for me to write, like to type it and actually say it out loud, where it took that moment for me. And I'm like, wow, I have muscular dystrophy. Like, it took that moment, never mind what the
Mm,
doctors were saying for me as I'm typing it and saying that out loud. So once I like kind of posted that blog and posted it on my social media platforms and all of that, it was like it kind of felt good because I'm like kind of like a weight was lifted on my shoulders. So I
yeah.
would say like that opened the door a little bit, not 100%, but still like, wow, like even friends that I chatted with on a regular basis, they're like, they read that, they're like, oh my God, like I didn't even know that, because then you wouldn't look at me because that's people don't understand like so all these disabilities, some of them are invisible and
Mm-hmm.
some of them, yes, you can see them, but at that time, I'm still like driving, doing me. So no one, you couldn't really look at me and tell like, oh yeah, she has a disability. So they were just as confused and like, oh my God, thank you for sharing. And that kind of made me feel good and at ease just to get that positive feedback and support,
Right.
from people. Credit. So yeah, it definitely took some time. And like I tell people, yes, I'm cheery and I'm open to sharing my story now, but I still have my days. I still have my days living with muscular dystrophy. I don't know what the body's gonna feel like on mornings. I don't know if I feel like I want to fall. Sometimes the body feels more weak than others. So,
Mm,
I still have my days. I just like to let everybody know that like it's not all peachy all the time.
yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm sure you still
Yeah.
have your days. That's really powerful that you said it wasn't until like you had to write it. Like it's like in writing it, you had to like own that story. Like this is my story. And the power
Right.
of words and having to put that out there and then of course hearing other people respond positively and be inspired, and I'm sure a lot of people feel seen when they see your blog.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, it's true. And it's like, that helped me too with just connecting with other individuals that can kind of relate and understand my story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I always say, there's nothing like talking to somebody who understands what you're going through. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the family support and family and friends is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But talking to, say, somebody that has muscular dystrophy or MS or someone that can relate to having a chronic illness,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's like, wow, you're not alone. You have the support out there. So that definitely has helped me along the way as well.
Yes, yes, definitely. So you said that around the time this started to happen and everything, like you had been going to college and everything, and now you have this fashion line. So were you actually going to school for fashion or something related to fashion?
Yes, actually, I did. So before even this muscular dystrophy came into my life, I actually went and got my undergraduate degree from Framingham State University out here in Massachusetts in
Mm-hmm.
fashion design and merchandising. So I always had a passion for fashion. Always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So then I then furthered. It was like a year after I graduated in '07. Then I was like, you know what? I want to go back to school, like to get my master's in business to kind of get more into the business side of things. So that's when I was actually in school when all the symptoms and everything started happening. But, luckily I finished school and everything, got my master's degree. But yeah, I'm like, you know what? After I started coming out of denial, I'm like, you know what? I'm a true believer in certain things do happen for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, why not create something where I can kind of motivate and inspire others? Because, I know there's others out there like me that are in total denial,
Right.
being diagnosed. This is not like something I had when I was born. This came out in my early 20s, kind of out of nowhere. So, and I'm a huge person on like graphic tees. I like different like inspirational quotes and
Mm-hmm.
different tie-dye shirts. So then that's when, the kind of idea came to me to create the t-shirt line. And how I came up with the name was I knew I wanted something with the word chronic for chronic illnesses,
Yes.
but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to incorporate that. So then honestly, I was just lying in bed one night, and that's honestly when most of my creative ideas come to my head is when I'm like sleeping at night or
Mm-hmm.
something. And I honestly thought girls chronically rock. And I love the way it sounded. I love the way it flowed. And I was like, I like that. And then I just kind of ran with it from there. I started selling on Etsy. And then from there, eventually, then that's when I was like, you know what? It's time to launch my own website.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always great to have your own site. Ownership is key, especially
Right.
for us as Black folks. So much of history we've been denied that. So it's a
Yes.
blessing to be able to have it now.
Yes, it's so true.
So I also noticed that you are a champion of adaptive fashion. And so this was like a new term for me when I reviewed your site and kind of learned about that. So can you talk a little bit about adaptive fashion and its importance to consumers?
Sure. So adaptive fashion is honestly, I'm just like you, Jasmine. So of course, being in school, it's like I wouldn't think about all these things of like, adaptive fashion. Because here
Mm-hmm.
I went to school for fashion design, but at that time we wasn't learning about that. And then also, of course, I didn't really like so familiar with say the disability community. So I love it now that like I'm so kind of like my eyes had opened to like this whole different world.
Mm-hmm.
So adaptive fashion is kind of like more like inaccessible fashion for people like myself that have a disability to get dressed much easier on a regular basis. For instance, just to put on, like, say, my shirt because of the weakness in my arms, it's like, I have to be careful of just, either losing my balance and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of, then I can easily fall to the floor. And that's even getting help with my PCAs, aka personal care attendants that help me get dressed on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Which just, putting on bottoms, it's sometimes a struggle. And I think sometimes we take advantage of that, as an able bodied person. Because, like I said, I feel like I kind of live like two lives. It's like, here I was as an able bodied person, I wasn't thinking about adaptive fashion or all this accessibility. But then now I'm in a part of this community where I'm like, wow, I wasn't even thinking about these things before. So I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad that more designers now, such as like Tommy Hilfiger, Zappos, and also Target now have an adaptive clothing collection. I think it's awesome because people think because, just because we may have a disability, like, oh, yeah, we don't go out, we don't like to look good, we're not into fashion. And like, yes, we do. Yes, we can have adaptive fashion, but still look awesome at the same time. So adaptive fashion is AKA, like I say, accessible to make it easier. For instance, some like Tommy Hilfiger wear
Mm-hmm.
his adaptive shirts have magnetic snaps on like the shoulder where it's kind of like more like an easier closure, kind of give it that like leisure open room. So when we're putting on the shirt, it makes it much, much easier. Another thing with Velcro, some of our shirts where we can put our arms in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, who's ever helping us get dressed, boom, it's like so easy. They can just Velcro the back of it, if that makes sense. So it's not like that struggle,
Yeah.
like putting on a regular shirt. It just makes it more accessible. And it's like so amazing because really, adaptive fashion to me is not just for people with disabilities, it can be for all of us, all inclusive, So it's like
Yes.
we can all wear it. Yeah. So it's like my goal is to come out with the adaptive clothing line under Girls Chronically Rock umbrella. And I am in the process of right now of creating some shirts. But my plan is to, create bottoms, and I want to do swimwear. I want to do swimwear so bad
Ooh,
because
dope.
another important, yeah, because a lot of people don't understand. They think swimwear for some people is just seasonal, but for people like myself, for instance, the only treatment we have right now is like going to physical therapy, and that can be on land or in the pool.
That
And for
makes
me,
sense.
I like to go in the pool. Yeah, because in the pool, I feel like I just have so much more freedom. It's like I'm kind of like a mermaid in the pool, like I tell
Mm-hmm.
people. It's like I can do things in the water that I can't do on land. And of course, as you know, for even for an able-bodied person coming out from the water, you know how a bathing suit it just like sucks to your body, and it's just
Yes.
so annoying just to take it off just for an able-bodied person. So imagine what it's like for us,
Mm.
and that's just like a struggle. And I'm just like, I don't want to lose my balance and how it stuck to your body. So I'm like, if this bathing suit can be like adaptive and functional, that would be so much more exciting and more motivating, where I would feel exciting to get dressed, to go to the pool, and when coming out the pool. Because like I said, it's awesome exercise. So adaptive swimwear, that's like I've been dreaming about it like these past few weeks. So I think that's a sign.
Yeah. I mean, and I totally, that again, it's like something, it's just so much education, just this conversation, the things you just don't think about. Because, yeah, swimwear is just difficult to deal with, you know? And so
Yeah.
I cannot imagine, having to add additional, challenges on top of that.
Exactly. So, yep. So that's my next goal. I'm like, oh, adaptive swimwear. That would be awesome.
Yes. And I love that you said that, by having adaptive fashion pieces, it's better for everyone. So I'm not in the fashion industry, but I do work in tech. And so I try to be a champion for accessible design online and, having,
Yes,
alt text and using fonts that are appropriate with good contrast and things like that. And I feel like that's always something that I'm having to say as well to like developers and people in conversations is when you have accessible design online, it's better for everyone.
exactly. Exactly. And I'm so glad you know that. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It's kind of one of my things. So I kind of immediately go into like a new website and I'm like, we need to change all of this right now.
Right.
Okay, so another thing that I noticed that you talked about on your site is confidence as a muscle, and I thought that's like a really interesting perspective. And I have a quote from you that says, "The way I see it, confidence is a muscle. You've got to work at it, putting in repetitions towards success." One day of putting on makeup, one rep, one photo shoot, one rep, affirmations, one rep, smiling at how good I look in the mirror, another rep. I love that so much. Can you talk a little bit about this
Thank
idea
you.
and the importance of building confidence, especially as a professional?
Yeah, I mean, it totally takes time. You know what I mean? Like I said, I never really like to tell somebody like, "Oh yeah, you got this," like you confident. And it's like, especially say someone that first was diagnosed with something, because I've been there. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's like it takes time. Everybody deals with things differently. And I kind of feel like having that support from others, family and friends, but also, as I mentioned earlier, that support of like talking to somebody that understands what you're going through, like especially
Mm-hmm.
having a disability, that is so important because we can all build and, build that confidence within each other and just have that support, because I think that's so important because it's like, we sometimes feel like our voices are not heard here in the disability community. So it's
Yes.
like I think that's so important to come across, and have that confidence. And at another speaking engagement I did is like I kind of felt like was important because right now on my mirror in my bedroom, I kind of have like these little sticky notes where I put like, I am powerful,
Mm-hmm.
I chronically rock. And I kind of feel like that helps because every morning as I get up and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm getting dressed, my PCA is assisting me. Like I can look at those notes and that kind of just like kind of builds me up. Like okay, I got this. And yes, like I said, some days are worse than others because I never know what the body's going to feel like. But I think
Mm-hmm.
we all have that struggle some days, disability or not, where
Yes.
so especially during this pandemic and what we're going through now, it's a lot.
Right.
This is a lot, yeah. So I felt like that was powerful blog, and those words just mean a lot to me because it's like we all need to build each other up, especially people in the disability community, us as African Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and just like everything going on right now. So yeah, I felt like that was very powerful message for me to share, to just kind of, have your own confidence in your need because your confidence sometimes also rubs off on others.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can definitely see how important that is, especially when you're um dealing with additional challenges every day. that, just
Yes.
creating additional obstacles and things like that able-bodied people take for granted all the time. And I felt very called out and checked on that, like I said, when I was on your site, because there's so many things that I know I take for granted.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, you need to do more education and research. And so kind of piggybacking off of what you said about like everything that's been going on with today's climate, from coronavirus to, I don't want to say racism like it's new, but being put on blast in the way that it has
Right.
this past, this year.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you're very vocal about the Black Disabled Lives Matter movement. And of course you should be. And I saw a lot of stats that really kind of hit me, that 1 in 4 people have a disability. 50% of Americans killed by police have a disability. And Black people, of course, are 2.5 times more likely than our counterparts to be killed by police. So that's a huge trifecta to kind of deal with. So all of us need to be more vocal about how Black disabled lives matters. And one question that kind of came to mind, I thought
Yeah.
about was like, what can able-bodied Black folks do to be better allies? And then just as I thought of that question, I thought, how is asking that question any different than white folks asking Black folks how to stop racism? There's already so much research out there. Like, I mean, it's like, did you even take the time to research before you asked that question? So I did check myself, and I said, let me go and look at some stuff. So I found some suggestions, and I found that they were very similar to the same ones that we ask of white allies, right? Like, educate yourself, practice
Right.
accountability, encourage inclusive practices, raise awareness, watch your labeling and word choice, etc. So now I kind of pose this question to you
Right.
instead. Like, are these a good place to start? And is there anything else more specifically that you feel that able-bodied Black people can do to be better peers to the Black and disabled community?
I would say, like, I definitely appreciate you doing your research. For me personally, I don't mind when people say, ask me this question, but I know some people, are like, everybody's different, especially some people in the disability community that are not even Black, have certain problems with, like, if you ask them. But me, I'm pretty much open. But yes, I would say, I don't mind you asking me a question, because it's like, again, as I mentioned earlier, because I feel like, because I was living this whole able body life before, so it's like I kind of see both sides where, I was just like you, like, being an able bodied person, I wasn't thinking about adaptive fashion. I wasn't thinking about, accessibility for a person in a wheelchair when they go there. Is this place accessible? Is it going to have stairs? So all of that, I totally took advantage for and took for granted. So now that I'm on the side, it's like, here I am as an African American and disabled. So it's like I feel like I have double targets on my back.
Right.
So of course I feel like my voice has to extra be heard. I have to extra force things, extra put things out there, just because it's like, I'm here. I'm here to stay, and my voice is here to be heard. So it's like, yes, totally, everybody can probably do some research. I would definitely check out other, African American entrepreneurs with a disability like myself, because there's so many. And this is that's the thing a lot of people don't understand. So it's like, just hashtagging on Instagram, Facebook, disability awareness, hashtag chronic illness, and, Black disabled entrepreneurs. Like, you would see a whole different range of us show up, if we're here with a disability, but we're doing it, we're powerful, and we're having our own business. So I think that's important to maybe reach out to them, maybe ask them questions like, what can I do to support you? I want your voice to be heard. So I think and they would really appreciate that, because I know I would. So maybe like take initiatives like that and do research, like, let me find some African American, disabled, entrepreneurs in the area or wherever, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of us.
That's a good call out, definitely. Just in using Instagram hashtags to search, like, I think that's such an underrated search tool that people often don't think about. They just, I guess unless you're on the marketing side of it, then you start to see it that way. But a lot of times people forget, like, that's really the purpose of hashtags to categorize and tag.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so that's a great idea, and I know I'll take some time to look up some hashtags on IG.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so on your brand, Black Disabled Lives Matter, I kind of dug and got into a rabbit hole on your site on, some suggestions about how to be active when everything was happening with the George Floyd protests. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with like promoting your brand and trying to be a part of that movement without maybe being able to physically go out and be a part of that movement?
Yeah, definitely for me, as I always say, I like to express my emotions and what I'm going through my journey
Mm-hmm.
of living with muscular dystrophy and everything going on in the world through my line. So, of course, when all that was going on, that it's scary. It's terrifying.
Yes.
People are out there protesting, and I'm like, yes, I want you to protest. I'm glad, you know what I mean? We want to be heard. This needs to stop. But then I also was scared at the same time. I'm like, I don't see nobody out there with masks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all that was going through my head. And then it's like, I thought it was very important because I'm like, me myself, I've been very scared and paranoid to go outside during this time of the pandemic
Yes.
because I am
Rightfully
someone who's at
so.
high risk, with my respiratory and my weak muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought that was important. I was like, you know what? I want to put something on a shirt. Black disabled lives matter. I thought that was very powerful. And it's like once I posted that, so many people took a liking to it. And that I really got a lot of sales. So I appreciate
Good.
that. And that was from even people that don't have a disability and, people that were not even black, so
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was important. And then another thing was black, and then I did another one with just Black Lives Matter because, it was like, what was everything going on at that time? And it's like, I felt like that was my way to express that and to show my support. Because yes, I was watching on the news and it's scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. It's like, I want everybody to be safe. And it's like, it's like we're tired too. We're also very tired. Us as African Americans, it's like, when is this going to stop?
Yes.
We don't know. So it's like, I just like to express, my feelings and my emotions through my line. So I thought that was very important for me to put that on a shirt. Black disabled lives matter. Like, don't forget about us as well.
Yes, and I felt like very much that was kind of like the mantra behind the movement. It's like, don't forget about us also, and
Yeah.
because there are so many other communities within the Black African American community that often are overlooked when we talk about these issues, and
Yeah.
we you hear that a lot, more prominently now, the LGBTQ community, which is often, another community that's like looked over and sometimes, a lot of times, ostracized by different people in the Black community. So yeah, I think it's very important, and I saw that shirt that's going in my shopping cart as well.
Yeah. Yay.
So you are also a big advocate of therapy from what I've been seeing. And I think we hear a lot about how therapy has helped people work through personal issues. Can you talk about the role that therapy played in, your acceptance into everything, and also how it's kind of helped you on the business side, especially since your business is so rooted in catharsism?
Sure. So I would say therapy. Of course, it took some time. I wasn't like, boom, like, oh yeah, I need to see a therapist. Just like it took me time to even accept the fact that I had muscular dystrophy.
Right.
So that's just, one thing in itself. So yes, I believe that therapy, is important. Not everybody may be, gun ho about it. Like, oh yeah, like some people like, oh, I don't need that, or Black people don't go see a therapist, and it's like, yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
It's just like not everybody's open about it, right? So yes, but I feel like the important for me thing is like to especially finding a good one,
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of feel like over time, like I definitely don't find the best. That I kind of feel like I want somebody who gets it, somebody who understands. But yes, therapy has definitely helped me of expressing my emotions and letting them know what is going on. And then that kind of, because then I get that feedback of advice.
Mm-hmm.
And people always ask sometimes, like, why is it so much easier to talk to a stranger than opposed to like, someone you're close to, like friends or
Mm-hmm.
family? And I'm just like, I thought about that for a minute. I'm like, it's so true. But sometimes it's just like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know why. I mean, I can only speak from my experience. Like sometimes it's just like that where this total stranger, it's like I feel okay to open up to them because it's like I kind of feel like they don't know anything about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now telling them my story, if that makes sense. And so they're just there to listen and, to give their advice and feedback. And I kind of feel like that has helped, with regarding everything of, my emotions, what I'm feeling. And then, of course, like you mentioned, and running my business, because that's a lot. Here I am
Yeah.
balancing living with the disability and running a business. And I'm running this by myself. I don't have like a team of people. I don't have a board of directors. It's all me. So I'm the
Mm-hmm.
one who's sending in, the email. So, and I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, it's like only you know your business best.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that definitely has helped with, talking to a therapist and I don't mind it, but I think for me, it's all about finding the best one as well. someone you're comfortable with, someone you're like, all right, you look forward to seeing, say every week or how often you see them, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, when you actually are looking for a therapist, or when you look for one in the past, did you lean more towards someone who was African American, or someone who also is from the disabled community, to feel like they were more, able to relate to your issues?
Yes, I would say at first I wasn't really gun ho on like the race. I wasn't really like focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like now I definitely am. And then another thing is that sucks is sometimes my insurance doesn't want to cover everything.
Mm,
So for instance, not a particular therapist, but I did want to see a primary care doctor who kind of specializes in sees patients that have like say muscular dystrophy
yes.
and disability. So I'm all excited thinking I was about to see her. I can be her new patient, and then boom, find out, my insurance doesn't cover a particular network. So that's another thing that sucks. And it's like, man, like here I am all excited. So that's the thing, that sucks too with sometimes these health plans. It's like, they cover certain things, but not everything you may want.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think for now, I think I'm more focused on like looking for a new therapist that is African American. And if she's an African American that, also has a disability, oh my God, that would be like a match made in heaven.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
it's definitely a process of, yeah, it's like a process of finding, the good, a perfect one for you. And it also, I feel like it all depends on your area of where you live. I'm out here in Massachusetts, so it's very diverse out here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like who's to say if like say if I find a therapist that has a disability, she could be say maybe in Atlanta or something where my insurance may not cover.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's just a matter of finding that perfect one. So I'm still researching right now, and I'm hopeful that I will find the perfect one.
You know what? That's actually a really good point that I hadn't considered, as especially now with COVID and everything going on and everything is virtual. You can, why can't you have a therapist in Atlanta? If you can schedule a virtual
Yeah, that's
visit, but
true.
the insurance companies haven't quite caught up, they're behind.
Yes, it's so true.
Yeah, there's going to have to be some changes. Like there are several changes that can be made to healthcare in this country, but that's definitely going to have to be one that's made sooner rather than later.
Definitely.
Speaking of therapists, like because your blog is just like so raw, and you're so open, and you just are okay with talking about a lot of things that people may struggle with. Do you find that you have people who reach out to you and try to make you their therapist and kind of just like dump their issues onto you?
I feel like yes, within the disability community, where I do have some people that where reach out, whether it be like, oh my God, I love what you're doing with your business, Girls Chronically Rock, and I feel so inspired. I'm someone that have, I live with lupus, and I have so many like different moms, parents that have reached out to me too, telling me about their kids live with muscular dystrophy and how they're so inspired by my story. So it's like, and they tell me their problems or if they have a fall, and I totally don't mind it because, as I said, it's like if you had asked me this a few years ago, it's like
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be talking to nobody because it's like I didn't even figure out that I had muscular dystrophy. So it's like I totally love it when people do reach out to me because I'm like, oh, like you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like they see me and they feel inspired. Like I'm like, wow, that's pretty dope because I know when I look at other people, especially Black disabled entrepreneurs, creative artists. I'm like, that's so dope. I'm like, you go, girl. And then that inspires me to keep going and doing what I have to do. So, yeah, when I get those type of messages, that honestly warms my heart. And I'm like, oh, like they listened, or they're like, oh, I just listened to your podcast, or I see your story on such and such. And, I'm like, oh, that really makes me feel good because I'm like, people are, paying attention and getting my message across.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you could doubt yourself, like, oh, yeah, people like, do they get those chronically rock? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are they listening? Do they get my mission? And, so when I get those messages, that totally makes me feel good. I'm like, oh, and yeah, I totally love to respond and, hear their stories because I know what that's like of
Yes.
talking to somebody who gets it,
Yes, that is so important in being open to having those conversations, because I know, just like you said earlier, in conversations, sometimes people are open to educating you, and sometimes people are like, I'm not going to do that. Like, Google it yourself. I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And I've been on both sides of that for the Black Lives Matter movement. Sometimes I'm cool having those conversations. Sometimes I'm like,
Yep.
nah, do your homework. I don't want to talk.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That is true.
So I've heard you've kind of mentioned that it seems like you strategically seek out other, Black and disabled entrepreneurs and creatives. Can you drop some of your favorite artists, businesses, just to like give them additional visibility and people who are listening to this, they can go out and support?
Sure. One person that inspires me is I believe it's Lauren Spencer, and on Instagram her name is It's Lolo. She's awesome. She has a disability, African American, and she has changed the game. She's been a model in
Wow.
Tommy Hilfiger, Zappos, all of that stuff. So she's definitely somebody I look up to. Another person is I believe her name is Stephanie. She also I believe has a disability, and she is also a disability stylist. So she styles like
Mm,
models with the disability for these different
yes.
clothing lines. And I think that's so awesome. They're both African American, and there's so much more that I can probably, but those are the top two right now that I can think of. But even as I said, if you hashtag like say African American or Black disabled entrepreneur, like you're gonna see a whole different range, and you're gonna be like, wow, like look at all this group of people that we wouldn't think to look at, or certain things like that. So definitely check them out. Use hashtags, like Black content creators, Black disabled content creators, and all of that, and you'll see a whole different range of people that you didn't even know exist out there.
Yes, definitely. Y'all look up those hashtags, look up those creatives that she just dropped,
Yes.
and make some connections. I'm always plugging on the show connections. That's one of the core purposes of the show, is to connect other Black creatives with each other. And we need to support each other. We need to build a huge community, and we need to be more accessible to each other.
Yes, thank you.
So what is your ultimate goal for Girls Chronically Rock? Where do you see it going? What's your vision?
Sure, my vision is to create Girls Chronically Rock into a movement, but most important, well, already I honestly think it's a movement right now, but my goal is to make Girls Chronically Rock into a major empire. I'm looking to
Mm,
get Girls Chronically Rock into like stores as such as Target, Macy's. I'm looking to collaborate with designers like Tommy Hilfiger, Betsy Johnson, where I looked up to those designers growing up. And I also was inspired by fashion designer Kimora Lee Simmons from Baby Fat.
mm-hmm.
I'm like, I saw that was like my line back in the day. But yeah, so I would love to, collaborate. Yeah, I would love to collaborate with those designers and get Girls Chronically Rock into stores and just kind of make this movement, incorporate that with my different speaking engagements and hopefully get on TED Talk and, just Girls Chronically Rock, have all these different many things under the Girls Chronically Rock umbrella. But yeah, I'm just looking to build that empire.
Yes, and I am claiming all of that for you. We are going to manifest
Thank
that,
you.
especially the TED Talk. That's also a life goal of mine too, is to do a TED Talk, and it's coming
Yes,
for
that would
you.
be
I see it.
awesome.
I see it coming for
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. So, as we get ready to wrap up, you've already talked about this a bit, but it's just a general question I always ask my guests. How do you feel like your work impacts the Black community?
I feel like my work impacts the Black community just because I am someone who is Black and also have a disability. So I kind of feel like I
Right.
am now teaching them a whole different range. Because as I mentioned before, being an able bodied person, where I took a lot of things for granted. So now I have this
Mm-hmm.
platform where I can share with others in the Black community, Black disabled community, where we can all come together as one and support each other, whether we have a disability or not. So, I kind of feel like I have this movement and platform where it's like, I'm educating, people like yourself, as you said, you learned so much just from reading, my website. So now you can take that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and then share it with the next person. So I kind of feel like, I would hope that, I do have an impact, and I hope that the African American, community does, kind of learn about my movement of what I have going on as a Black disabled person and kind of be like, wow, like that's pretty dope. Where I do get sometimes messages like that where
Mm-hmm.
we're like, we want to share your story on, say, our Black website and different things like that. And I'm like, I appreciate that because we're coming together, as one, and they're learning a whole different, side of the world. This, oh,
Yes.
wow, she's Black and she has a disability. So it's like they're learning a whole new life themselves. And I appreciate that. And I want to use my voice, to do that.
Yes, and it's definitely being used. You could definitely tell that you have an impact, and looking at all of the different platforms that you've, been on, and I just can't imagine the lives that you've touched and the awareness and the ability
Oh,
for others to have felt seen. I know that is just so important, as Black people, Black women, and then I'm sure especially as a Black disabled woman, to be seen, to feel
yes,
seen.
exactly. Yep. That's true. We are going to be seen. We will be seen.
Yes. So, what advice do you have for aspiring creatives looking to start a brand with a deeper, impactful meaning and deeper work for a specific community?
My advice for people when I do get asked this question is I say just go for it. It's like if you have an idea or a vision, I would say just do it. And yes, it's more easier said than done. I totally get it. Because especially if you're in a mindset of you first being diagnosed, or if you have like, bad news or something, of course it takes time
Mm-hmm.
to process that. You know what I mean? But it's a good way to kind of incorporate that, to maybe start blogging, start a YouTube channel. And before you know it, whatever you had, your vision will be up and running. Because I notice people love to hear that raw and honest, stories.
Yes, they do.
And yes, I know it's not easier for everybody to express that, because like I said, it took me like, I feel like I just came out of denial the other day. So I totally get that. You know what I mean? Where it's like some people may first get diagnosis from a doctor or whatever, and they totally embrace that, where they're like, oh, hey, like I got diagnosed and, I want to share with everybody. Whereas me, I was not like that. I
Mm-hmm.
was like totally shut down. But I would say if you have an idea or vision, I would just, go for it, because before you know it, your idea will be up and running. And just take your time, be a part of the different groups that are on Facebook, like Boston Business Women, Women Helping
Mm-hmm.
Women. There's Black entrepreneur groups out there, and I think that's so important, because connecting with other individuals, if you have an advice or something you want to share, like, you'll be surprised, there's so many support out there of, like, people responding and giving you that like positive feedback or whatever, that honest truth that you want to hear. So definitely social media is a game changer, and I feel like definitely take advantage of that, especially during this time we're in now with this pandemic. It's like, who knows when things are going to get back to 100% normal. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
join those groups and, ask those questions you want to ask. And you'll be surprised of how many support is out there in these groups. So, because that definitely has helped me along the way as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure, especially like you said, now more than ever, that need to connect. Um,
Yeah.
how have you been coping with everything that's going on with the pandemic? Has your routine been drastically changed, or are you have you been able to resume to back to some of your normal routine as of yet?
I would say the most, because I would tell people like I'm like an introvert, so I don't mind being at home. Like I told people, I feel like I was like prepared for this pandemic, if that makes sense. I'm like I'm totally fine being at home. Like I love watching my TV shows; they keep me entertained. But yes, once this pandemic hit, like I was going to aquatic therapy prior, like going to the pool, getting my exercise. But of course now, like I totally like I have not. I've been outside for the first time 2 weeks ago since March. So
Wow.
that's to tell you, like, I've been so paranoid because I feel like, oh, I'm going to go outside and that corona is just going to jump on me. And I'm
Right.
like, I don't want to deal with that. So I've been inside, but I'm okay with it. But yeah, so certain things like that where like I haven't been able to go to aquatic therapy, where, I've been having my televisits with my doctors over the phone and virtual visits, which I'm totally fine with. But yes, I know there's going to be a point when I do need to go into the doctors because, like to get blood work done and to
Mm-hmm.
get my annual echocardiogram to check my heart to make sure everything is okay. And but as of right now, like for instance, even the aquatic therapist that I was seeing, they're like, oh, you can, if you want to come in, if you want, if you feel comfortable with doing one on one, and we're not going to have all these different people in the pool. But I told her, I was honest. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable yet coming back in the pool. Like, I just feel like
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I was like, no, I'm not there yet. I was like, oh, no, yes, we'll be safe. But I was like, I'm just not there yet. So I think I kind of like just told everybody, like, I'm just restarting January 2021, and we'll even see what it looks like then, honestly. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it totally has impacted with like going to aquatic therapy and things like that. But otherwise, like I'm chill. I've been at home, and yes, I haven't really seen many family and friends just because, I'm like, I'm staying over here, you
I
stay over there.
understand that. Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah, so yeah, but I'm okay. I mean, I watch Netflix, watch my Hulu's, my different reality TV shows I watch. Yeah, I'm a TV fanatic.
Yeah, I feel you. I have certain shows that I stick with. It takes a lot for me to get invested in one, but once I do, I
Yeah,
will binge it.
right, exactly. And that kind of just keeps your mind off of kind of like, well, for me personally, of like, what's certain things that are going on in the world. Like, like when I watch my shows, I tell people they kind of keep me grounded, keep me sane.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. So,
definitely.
how can people find you online to keep pace with your creative journey?
Sure, you can definitely check out my website, girlschronicallyrock.com. I am on Instagram, girlschronically_rock. I am also on Twitter, and I am also on Facebook. I have a business page, Girls Chronically Rock, and you can find my personal page on Facebook, Keisha Graves. So yeah, definitely check out, send me a message, check out my merchandise.
Yes, definitely check out that merch because it was dope. There was a mask. I think it was like Trust Your Dopeness. I was like, oh
Yes.
man, I've got to get
Yes.
that. Love it.
Yes. Thank you.
That's I know like we're wrapping up, but that's a quick question. Where are you getting your inspiration for like some of these ideas? Because I noticed you had like some very clever sayings on some of your products.
Yeah, I would say for myself, like I just like trust your dopeness. For instance, I thought of that
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like trust and believe in yourself. Trust your dopeness. Trust the abilities that if you want to accomplish something, you can do it. Same thing with my other shirt. Hello, my name is Chronically Ill Badass. I thought that was a good way to express because I'm like,
Yes.
yes, I may be chronically ill, but I'm badass. I still got a life. I still go out. I still date. I'm into fashion. And then the other one, I was inspired because I thought walk with the twist because I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was important. Because I'm like, yes, like as I mentioned before, some of people have invisible disabilities, and then some people, do not. So I kind of felt like, here I was when I used to walk with my cane and my walker, like kind of like, all right, we kind of have our own signature walk, like walk with the
Mm-hmm.
twist. So I thought that was important to express on a shirt. So yeah, all my different sayings, like, and I have unapologetically unique, unapologetically black and disabled. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was important because I'm like, here I am, yes, as an African American, and then yes, you got to accept me for who I am. I'm black and I have a disability. So a lot of my sayings, I kind of like could just be random, like they kind of just pop in my head, or certain random things I say. Like I know I would tell people, yeah, trust your dopeness, and then I thought, oh, that would be kind of cool on a shirt.
Yes.
So it's like I randomly can say things sometimes, and then I kind of like, oh, like let me put that on a shirt. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of all like express my emotions of things I may think about, and I get a lot of my inspiration just from like I said, random things I may say, things I may see online, and then just from watching my TV shows.
Yes, yes. I can see they're very creative. So I will
Yeah,
definitely
thank you.
be copying a lot of your gear. Make sure that y'all get out and like and support Girls Chronically Rock because that is first, the name is dope, the brand is dope, the story behind it is dope. And I'm so glad that you were able to take some time to talk to me today.
Yes, and thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to talk with you anytime. It has been a pleasure of mine.
Thank you.
Wow, what a wonderful episode with Keisha. She just came through with all of the tips that we needed to make sure that we are being inclusive and mindful of all Black lives, not just some Black lives. So I'm going to hit you with 5 key takeaways that I got from today's episode. Let me know if you have different key takeaways. Leave feedback. Get on Facebook, IG, or Twitter and respond to this episode. So number 1, changes in your personal life do not have to affect your career and business goals. Find a way to adapt. Keisha went to school to study fashion, and despite having been diagnosed with a chronic illness, it took her a minute to get back on track, but she did. And she continued with her goals and still went on to open her own business and start her own fashion line, which has a popular following. Number 2, create for people like you. If you need a product, chances are that someone else does too. So create it, sell it, build a community around it, and use your story about your business, the cause, and your purpose to empower someone who may be going through the same struggles. Keisha talked a lot about the fact that when she was able-bodied, she didn't think about a lot of things that a lot of us who are also able-bodied may not think about sometimes. I know that there are a lot of things I had considered that I learned from preparing for this episode with her and speaking with her. So, once she actually became a part of the disabled community, she had to rethink a lot of things. And because of that, she realized she needed to create products that not only work for her, but that will work for people just like her going through similar pain points. Number 3, make choices that are good for all consumers, not just the ones you immediately think of. A perfect piggyback to the last point, adaptive fashion, which Keisha learned about, is a great example of how friendly fashion is good for all consumers and not just some. Number 4, seek and find the mental health resources you need to be a healthy business owner. Owning a business is a lot, especially if you're doing it alone. Talk to someone, get a therapist. Y'all, it's 2020. We are not ashamed of going to therapy anymore, okay? Like, take your behind to a therapist. In the COVID world, get online. There are plenty of resources to finding online therapists, all types of resources that you can use. Number 5, find and support entrepreneurs on a similar path as you. When someone wins from our community, we all win. Period. We all win. That's why we have this podcast. It doesn't matter how many people I talk to in similar industries, similar fields, doing similar work. they're doing different things. They have different approaches, and they're going about it in a different way. And we can all benefit from learning what other people in our field are doing and how we're making moves as a community and how we can connect with each other to make those moves more impactful. So those are my 5 key takeaways for today. As usual, thanks for tuning in. So happy that you were able to stick around for another episode of Blackxecutive Podcast. If you liked the episode, make sure that you let me know. Either reach out or definitely leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, keep aspiring to inspire. Thanks for listening to another episode of Blackxecutive. If you enjoyed listening in on this convo, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you found us. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Blackxecutive. Have something to add to the conversation? Visit blackxecutive.com to leave feedback, and your thoughts could be featured on a later episode. While you're there, pick up your exclusive Blackxecutive gear and rep the culture. And spread the knowledge. If you know a Black creative trying to go pro, a corporate mogul looking to advance, or a cousin that's always hustling but never gets an idea going, drop them a link to the show. Until next time, keep aspiring to inspire.